What's up everyone, I'm Gio and welcome back to Carvalho Creations, where I show you how to make awesome props and projects of your own. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to create Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now this is going to be an introduction into sculpture, so we'll be talking about a short material list. I'll show you how to create the armature itself. I'm going to give you some sculpting techniques, and then I'm going to go over the different types of clays that I've used and the pros and cons of each. But now, I think we need to dim the lights down low and let the darkness take hold as we travel back to the holiday worlds of old. I hope you're all ready to have a bit of fun, because I'd say it's time we begun. All right, everyone, to start off today's project, I wanted to go over the material list we're going to be using to create Jack. First, you're going to need a base plate, something to put your sculpture on top of, and this is just a 3/4 inch piece of scrap fence wood that I have laying around. I cut it to 8 inches in length. It's about 6 inches in depth. So this is what we're going to adhere our wire to, and I'm using 16 gauge galvanized wire. Now, if you guys are buying this material to create your sculpture at home, I would definitely recommend using an aluminum wire. It's a lot more malleable and easy to bend, so it'll be a lot easier for you to get the aluminum wire. I just happen to have 16 gauge galvanized because I'm constantly doing projects, so I'm going to use what I have for this one. Going to need a little bit of aluminum foil, a drill gun, and we're going to use this to actually twist up our wire to create a stronger structure for our Jack Skellington, the clay to adhere to. You're going to need some tin snips to cut your wire, a little bit of duct tape, and obviously whatever clay you're going to be using. Now I'm going to go over in more detail later on in the video about the different clays you can use and what applications work best and some of the pros and cons of each of them. So just stay tuned for that. And also, of course, your acrylic paint to the final paint job on Jack himself. But for now, let's get right into that armature build. All right, to start off our armature today, we're going to be using our 16 gauge galvanized wire. Now, I want my Jack Skellington to sit about 12 inches off this base plate. So I'm going to be giving myself a little extra room. So I'm going to be measuring about 16 inches worth of wire. And then we're going to double that, because we're going to twist it on itself to create a really strong structure for that clay to adhere to. So we're going to go 38 inches. I'll measure it out here with my measuring tape. About there. Cut it off with the tin snips. And then we're going to bend it over itself, just like this. And I'll feed this in to my actual drill chuck here, tighten that down, and the other end, I'll use my pliers to hold it down in place, and then we'll let it spin on itself. If you guys can see that, creates a nice little coil there. Okay, and this is going to be really perfect to start our structure. Now, this little eye here that I left, hopefully you guys can see this. This is what we're going to screw down to our base plate. And this is going to act as a half of the body. This is why I'm going to do 2 of these. So this is going to act as one half. This will be the left side of his body. We'll start at his foot, work up and bend around as we need to create the size we're looking for Jack. So I'm going to make another one of these, and then we'll come right back so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so now that we have both of our wires put together and coiled up, I'm going to use this as a reference to start to bend around this wire to get the proportions correct. It's the whole point of these armatures is to create a structure that's going to be able to support your character, your creation, or whatever material you're putting over, and then also to capture that pose that you're looking for that's going to hold for you. And again, this wire is going to be perfectly strong enough to do what I need to do, but I just wanted to give you a little visual of it before I put it together, and you guys will see it in a second. All right, so here's just a little closer detailed shot of the armature itself. As you can see, I twisted up another piece of wire just to create the area for the head and the neck, and then twisted it on top of this wire here. And then I connected these two with just a little bit of duct tape. I'll go ahead and fill in some of the chest area where there's a little more meat to him than the top of his head. with a little bit of foil. But overall, this is about the pose, and I'm pretty happy with it. So the next step is going to be adding the foil to it just to neat it out, and then we'll start on the clay work. Now that our armature is all done, let's go ahead and talk clay. Now, you guys have seen me use some of these clays before in the past, but I wanted to give you some of the pros and cons and some of the things I've learned in the last few months while sculpting. There's a couple clays that I've used. They're all air dry. I don't have access to a kiln, and I'm not doing any polymer clays right now, so this is all air dry clay. Real easy to get at your local Hobby Lobby or Michael's stores. I do all my shopping in Hobby Lobby. They got great deals there. I've used foam clay in the past, and I want to show you guys some of the Crayola air dry clay, and then also this stuff here. Let me see, what the hell is it called? Armature or something like that. Armature air dry clay. So as far as price goes, this is by far the cheapest. You go to Hobby Lobby, like they have a 40% off deal every other week. So this stuff is normally like 15 bucks. It goes down to like 9 out the door. So it's a really great clay to work with. It's really soft, really malleable, and it really produces really smooth finishes. The problem with it is it cracks. And it cracks almost every single time. So if you want to start off and practice and kind of hone the skill a little bit and work on your sculptures, try this stuff out first. Falls apart, gotta kind of live with that, take it with a grain of salt, but it is a really great clay to work with, probably the best to work with. So very easy to work with, very good clay, but again, it cracks. So don't use this for any kind of finished project, or if you have custom orders that you're trying to get done and you want to use clay, do not use this for any of those finished pieces. The second one I want to talk about is this Crayola air dry clay. Now this stuff, I used it on Uncle Fester here. It's probably the heaviest out of the bunch. It has a really good workable material though. It's really nice, but it can crack on you if your armature underneath doesn't have any give. So when I first started doing these sculptures, I noticed that if I had a foam base, because I like to sculpt over foam a lot of times, it just saves me a lot of material in clay, and it gives me a base to start off like this dude here. This clay will crack if you put a hard surface underneath it, because what happens is the clay ends up drying out and it shrinks. And once it shrinks down, that's when you get all the cracks. But if you have a good armature underneath that has a little give with foil or something like that, you'll be okay with it, like this Uncle Fester here. Now, it's super heavy, so the armature that you use underneath, you're gonna want something that's strong enough. Now, I have a wire armature under here, and it's held pretty well, but I did have a little cracking on the top of the head here. You can see where I patched it up. And that's because the wire was pushing through because of the weight of this clay sinking down on it. So just to keep that in mind, it is a really good clay. It's super inexpensive too. I think this is a 2.5 pound little bucket here. And if you can get it on that 40% off deal, you're talking about $4 out the door. So really good stuff. The other clay I talk about all the time is foam clay. It's foam air dry clay, and it's great stuff. I've used it a lot of times. It's super lightweight, so when you're talking about big props that you don't want to be weighed down by this heavy clay, definitely go the foam clay. The drawbacks to this that I've noticed is some of the dyes they add to this, it has a different drying effect. So if you get the white, at least in this specific brand, tends to work out pretty good. It holds its shape. You can get a decent amount of detail out of it. But I noticed with the blacks and the grays, sometimes when you sculpt them, you lose a lot of the detail, or it swells when it dries, and that I didn't like. If you guys watched my elf video I did a few months ago, I used foam clay on that, and I had a weird experience where I did a lot of detail. It looked great, and then the next morning I came back in to check on it, and it had swelled, and I lost probably 50% of my work. Now, that was the first time that's happened. I've used foam clay in the past, and that stuff has worked out great. You see, I've done it on the Exorcist illusion costume. I did it on the witch prop that I made, and also the Freddy Krueger, and those all turned out great, and they held their shape. So I'm not exactly sure why. I'm guessing it's the dye, the coloring they add to this. So if you are using this, I recommend white, and then just base coat paint your pieces when they're done. The other clay I want to talk about, and I've used this before, is this DOS air dry clay. This stuff is excellent. If you are looking to do a finished piece and you want to make sure there's no cracks, you don't want to worry about any of that, use the DOS stuff. Now, this is twice as expensive as anything else here, But like I said, for your finished pieces, it's gonna be great. Another one I use a lot is Jovi's air dry clay, and that stuff is probably my favorite. It's about the same amount as this DOS stuff, but like I said though, if you're getting this at Hobby Lobby, you can walk out the door every other week on that 40% off for about $8, which isn't bad. It's about 2 pounds of clay here. But the Jovi air dry clay, I used it on this guy. And if you guys have been following me for a while, this is one of the first Halloween videos I did. And this clay sticks so well to the foam. I haven't had a crack on it yet. I've had it for years. It looks just as good as the first day I did it. So Jovi's air dry clay, DOS air dry clay, your best stuff. Now, because I've been working with the clay so vigorously for so many months now, I've started to mix some of the mediums together, because sometimes, like, we're talking about 5 to 10 pounds of clay per sculpture if you're doing something this size, like this guy. And it can get really costly really quick. So what I ended up trying to do was taking some of the DOS clay and mixing it with this cheap stuff here. And I noticed if you knead this together really well, and it only takes about maybe a pound of this per 2.5 pounds of the cheap stuff. And if you knead that in really well, you actually get a really strong bond and you get no cracks in your finished piece. This Harry and the Hendersons guy I had done about a month ago now. This is the mixture of these two clays here, the DOS and this cheap Armature clay. And it turned out perfect. This is one of my favorite sculpts. It's relatively lightweight considering the amount of clay I use for this. A lot of detail, and it held up really well. So definitely, if you guys are looking to kind of stretch your budget a little bit, you can mix some of these clays together, and it does work, and it does hold, and it comes out really nice. So just a little backstory for different kinds of clays, what you guys want to use, the pros and cons of some of them. For this guy here, we're going to be using the mixture process just like I did for Harry and the Hendersons here, and that'll be perfect for this. Again, Jack's not very big. It's a small sculpture, but it's a cool way to begin sculpting. So just to let you guys know, but let's get over to that sculpt. All right, so to begin the sculpt, all we're going to do is start laying down material. Now with the air dry clay, you want to make sure you're only using what you need and bagging everything else that you're not using. And the reason for that is this is air dry clay, so it's gonna start drying immediately as soon as that air starts to touch it. So you want to keep whatever you're not using bagged and put away. And right now, I'm just going to be layering on this material to cover my armature, and then I'll start to work in the detail. Okay, so now that we have them all covered up, we're just gonna start working in more detail. And I'm just adding small bits of clay to areas I think need a little bit more. I want his shoulders to be a little more even, so I'll be adding a little more clay to that area. And you're just building up. All right, so the sculpt is all done. I just wanted to give you guys a little detailed shot of what it looks like. This guy is going to take about 2 to 3 days to dry for that air dry clay, but you can see the amount of detail we're able to get out of such a small character. But as soon as he's all dried up, I'll go ahead and maybe give him a small sand with 220 grit sandpaper just to smooth everything out. But then he'll be ready to go. So here he is, Jack Skellington. Oh yeah. It is so nice to be back in front of the camera with you guys sharing another project. I hope you liked today's tutorial. And if you'd like to see a life-size version of Jack Skellington, please write me down in the comment section below. I'd love to bring that to life for you. I know it's been a while since we had one of these videos. I've been really working on my skill as far as sculpting and honing in the techniques and stuff that I can share with you guys and bring to you. But I have dropped a bunch of shorts as of late. If you guys haven't seen those, they're all sculptures and paint jobs on a variety of different characters. I've done the Grinch, we've done Hellboy, we've done Uncle Fester, just to name a few, and they're really cool videos, so make sure you go check those out. And don't forget to hit that notification bell because we're back and we're going to be bringing videos very frequently. But until next time, keep building things, stay creative, and don't forget to go wild with it. I'm Gio from Carvalho Creations, and I'll see you next time. Spooky, spooky. Okay, bye.